Lately, there's been a lot of chatter about a new social media platform.
Social media sites and ex-competitor Bluesky now sitting above 21 million users on the platform.
Bluesky says it has seen 1 million new users since the presidential election.
Bluesky is rapidly becoming the go-to place for refugees from X.
Bluesky is a decentralized social media platform and the brainchild of Twitter founder Jack Dorsey, who conceived Bluesky as a side project inside Twitter in 2019. Bluesky, which is no longer affiliated with Dorsey, is now its own company. And following the US election, the platform got an influx of new users, mostly from individuals looking to flee X. Some of those users include billionaire Mark Cuban, New York Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and author Stephen King, among others.
I think there's a couple of things that are drawing users into Bluesky. Primarily, it's the fact that there's no billionaire associated with Bluesky, right? So if you go to Threads, you're still within the Zuckerberg empire. If you go to X, that's associated with Elon Musk. So for a lot of users, Bluesky is a healthy alternative for them.
We're building an open source social network that anyone can.
That is a really good point. I've been noticing some videos of people highlighting how Elon Musk is getting into arguments with people, and then he causes problems on their X account. They'll remove the verified check mark. They'll maybe remove tags or other things. And so it does seem fairly petty for that to happen. And you're at the whims of these individuals. He owns a sizable chunk of X, and so he can do what he wants with it. And that is the danger of being on a platform that is owned by a single person or a single person of noticeable power and wealth that does not necessarily care as much about this one product. For Elon Musk, if X fails, he has so many other companies that could succeed that he's not going to lose all of his wealth over this. And so that's where he might not be as invested into this one product as somebody else would be if this is their one true business that they are fully invested in. This is their livelihood, and they're banking on this success to keep growing for themselves and potentially be something that they can have for a career or for a number of years down the road. And so I do think that does play some role, though I'm not sure how much people are thinking about this actively, but I could definitely see for big content creators and for folks who want to be vocal on these platforms that you'd probably have that in the back of your mind. I'm not sure if it's necessarily as true for the average everyday user who's looking to follow primarily other content creators. But I think for content creators, I would imagine that is true, especially since they're the ones who are potentially more at the whim. Or you could also be worried about things like censorship or things like that. Obviously, Facebook has done things like that where they'll fact check or do whatever it is that they want to do. And there's going to be inherently bias and other things associated with that. So separating yourselves from one of these giant companies that can basically do what they want when they want will hopefully add a clearer guideline on what people are doing in that environment and maybe be a fairer environment for folks to interact in.
Can take into their own hands and build on. And it's something that is radically different from anything that's been done in social media before.
At the end of the day, most social media platforms are trying to win over advertisers and not the end user. And so what we've done at Bluesky is we have prioritized the end user as our primary citizen on our platform.
In other words, Bluesky has promised to give power to the people to decide how they experience social media. The platform.
That was a great story by that individual who represents the company. I would say most big companies that I've worked at, when they're small and they're looking to grow, that has always been their primary focus. Because if you're a new entrant into a particular market, whatever that market is, there has to be a reason why people are going to go to you. And so if you're a monopoly like a Google or somebody else, you're going to focus a lot on your revenue and just optimizing your revenue going forward, especially for a public company, looking out for the interests of your investors. And so how are you going to compete with a giant company that has tons of users, tons of money backing them, tons of employees, and you have to find some way to differentiate yourself? And I've seen a lot of companies go down this path of they differentiate themselves by focusing on the end user. And so I wouldn't say that's particularly unique. And also many of the people and many of the companies that you see today that are maybe less user friendly all started with the user in mind. Google, for instance, they were trying to help people find searches, etc. And same thing for like Facebook or Instagram or any of those things. And so most companies start this way because that's the way you get your foothold, is you need to have some reason why somebody would go to your platform, even if you're not the biggest platform, or even if you don't have all the features or the uptime or all that other jazz that comes with one of those bigger companies. And the easiest way to do that is be customer focused. But a lot of companies end up changing this tune once they become the big player. So it is great for them to say that, and I hope they do stay with that in mind. But I would caveat that for all of you folks, of every company will say this, especially if they're in need of users. They're going to say that you're top of mind for them. But there's nothing keeping them accountable to that being true throughout the lifespan of that company.
The platform currently does not host ads to pay its bills, which is the business model of many other social media platforms, though its leadership has not ruled that out in the future. But whether the platform can avoid some of the pitfalls of past social media companies and continue its impressive growth as the dust settles after the election remains to be seen. On the surface, Bluesky looks and feels a lot like old Twitter. Users can write short posts that include a photo or short video. They can also interact with the posts of others by either commenting, liking, or reposting the original post. Users' feeds consist of the people they follow, as well as any other feeds they decide to subscribe to.
We have about maybe 5 cat feeds, more than 200 Swiftie feeds, and various other feeds that are either organized chronologically or based on what your followers are liking.
There's the Discover feed that I think is showing you content from all across Bluesky. Then there's just your follower feed. So it's nothing but content from the folks that you have specifically opted into receiving content from. So I think just like making that choice is very different than what we get from Threads or X or Instagram, TikTok.
Bluesky became an independent company in 2021 after Dorsey tapped Jay Graber to lead the new venture as CEO. In October 2022, Bluesky opened up a waitlist for its Bluesky app to beta users. That same month, Elon Musk completed his $44 billion deal to buy Twitter. Bluesky, which was initially invite-only, opened up to everyone in early 2024. Unlike conventional social media platforms, Bluesky is designed to be decentralized and give users a greater degree of control over what they see or don't see, as well as their data.
As the social media platforms got larger, you have this centralization of curation. The platform gets to decide what the feed algorithm is, so what sort of content you get to see, and it also gets to decide what sort of content is permissible or not permissible on the platform. More recently, you see platforms like Bluesky, Mastodon taking off, and people also just exploring back to like the community roots.
We don't control what you see on Bluesky. There's no single algorithm showing you things. You can browse a marketplace of algorithms built by other people. You can build your own algorithm. If you
I see. So this is what they mean by it is decentralized. That's an interesting term for that in my mind. So they don't have an algorithm today, but again, this is where we'll see what that turns into. And that could be a good or a bad thing. So one of the reasons why you might want a centralized algorithm of some sort is how would you find new people? And what happens when the content creators you initially followed stop posting? And so there has to be a way to help you find various mechanisms for new content creators, new content that you might be interested in. Because at the end of the day, this app is going to be like any other app. They're going to want you to stay on it for as long as possible, interact as much as possible so they can make as much money with whatever method they're going to have at that point. And so the fact that they don't have like a recommendation or a forced method for how you see feeds is somewhat disingenuous, because technically your feed is what you're following. That is an algorithm. They chose that. That's how you're seeing it. So saying that they don't have one at all is fairly disingenuous, because that's impossible inherently. They have an algorithm that is defining what you see. For my interpretation, they're just not making too many tweaks, if any tweaks at all, from what you would expect to see on your own. But this is where, if you think about ads would be things that you don't intend to see, but they will add into your feed. And so, again, this seems like an odd way of saying this, and it also seems slightly disingenuous in so much as they almost certainly have the power to do this and are in fact doing it. They're just being very light-handed with how they're doing it today. But that doesn't mean in a year from now they won't be.
Want to see just cats or just art, you can do that.
Threads rolled out a similar feature in November, allowing users more control over their algorithm with custom feeds. Bluesky is also decentralized in its physical infrastructure. Unlike traditional social media platforms, which host user data on the company's servers, Bluesky gives users the option to host their data on their own servers, though experts say the majority of users still use Bluesky's maintained server. The platform also allows users to port over any of their existing posts, likes, and followers to a new platform should they choose to leave Bluesky. Bluesky's leadership says this makes the platform billionaire-proof.
If someone bought Bluesky or if the Bluesky company went down, everything is open source. This means that someone else could pick it up and run with it. This means that what happened to Twitter couldn't happen to us in the same ways, because you would always have the option to immediately move without having to start over.
But at the end of the day, Bluesky is still a business, and it will eventually need to figure out how to make money. In May of 2024, Dorsey left the platform's board over disagreements over the strategy that Bluesky was taking.
The biggest thing that Dorsey disagreed with when it comes to Bluesky's strategy is the fact that Bluesky went out and has raised funding from venture capital. It's essentially starting out the same way that we've seen most other social networks start out, whether it be Facebook or Twitter. It's going to have a lot of the same incentives as those other social networks that have come before it.
In an interview with Pirate Wires, Dorsey explained that Bluesky was repeating Twitter's mistakes, saying everything we wanted around decentralization, everything we wanted in terms of an open source protocol, suddenly became a company with VCs and a board. That's not what I wanted. That is not what I intended to help create. Upon his departure, Bluesky thanked Dorsey for his help, but did not say much else. In lieu of Bluesky, Dorsey has invested in Nostar, an open source protocol on which developers can help build apps, such as a social network. Nostar is not affiliated with any company. Bluesky is also run on a decentralized protocol known as the AT protocol.
If you think about email or text messaging, for example, the interface for Gmail is quite different in comparison to, say, Yahoo or some other email provider. But if I send you an email from this account, you should still receive it and get the gist of it on the other platform. Same with text message. So what companies like Bluesky are doing with these protocols is essentially bringing that same approach, but to social media. So perhaps in the future, you post something on Bluesky and you can see it on a rival app.
At least that's how it's supposed to work in theory. In practice, Bluesky's protocol doesn't currently work with the protocols of some of its competitors. For example, Threads and Mastodon, another decentralized social media platform, both utilize the ActivityPub protocol, which is incompatible with Bluesky's AT protocol. Another key aspect of Bluesky's functionality is that it lets users create and run their own moderation services, which layer on top of Bluesky's default community guidelines by using labels to dictate what content users want to see.
So if you want to hear about the news, you can go to the news feed. But if you want to tune out politics, you can use the politics labeler and then hide all the politics from your feed and just look at other things.
Users can also subscribe to particular labelers.
So these are people who are going in and providing labels to individual posts or to people. What that then allows is then I as a user can look at all the labelers that are out there, decide here's a particular labeler that I trust, and then I can then see those labels when I am viewing my feed.
As of January, Bluesky had over 27 million registered users. The 26-person company has raised $36 million so far and is reportedly valued at $700 million. Bluesky's user base got a big boost in September after Brazil temporarily suspended rival X for failing to comply with regional content moderation policies. Another influx of users came over the month of November and into December, following the US election. While Bluesky's user numbers are a far cry from those of its major competitors, X and Meta's Threads, which are estimated to have around 600 million and 300 million monthly active users respectively, experts say that Bluesky's growth was nonetheless impressive.
The growth numbers for Bluesky are wild. I think it's really because there's this vacuum being left, right, by old Twitter. When Elon Musk took over Twitter and it kind of became X, things changed a lot, right? You know, content moderation changed. He changed the pricing options. As he kind of navigated that transition, he lost a lot of people.
After Elon Musk took over X in 2022, he reinstated thousands of previously banned accounts and slashed around 80% of the platform's workforce, including many of the platform's content moderators. A proliferation of hate speech on the platform led to an exodus of advertisers. Musk had some pointed words for them.
So if somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go yourself.
But users also fled. Data from internet traffic firm SimilarWeb shows that deactivations of X accounts in the US surged on November 6th, with over 100.
This is also a good point of, I think when they were mentioning all the decentralized stuff for Bluesky, they also mentioned content moderation. Content moderation is something that they're going to have to do. Like, there's laws and regulations at a minimum for this. And even though some of those are going to be loose, there's going to be the actual folks like the advertisers here who said, I just don't want to be part of this platform due to the moderation, etc. Because people could post anything theoretically. Like, it could be pirated content, it could be adult content, it could be anything, really. And so that's where you would have to have some moderation to prevent that from happening, and you would be responsible as the platform for that to be uploaded. And so again, that's gonna be necessary for Bluesky to be functioning. And so this is where they will have to have moderation to some extent, and they will have to have some centralization. Again, they also highlighted previously that you can hold onto your own content in like a separate store, but most of the things are in a particular storage that is centralized. And so for you to, in my mind, say you are decentralized, you would arguably have to have no central storage bank. You'd have to say you have to host all of your stuff. Everybody is individually hosting all of their content, and therefore it is truly decentralized at that point. Just allowing the possibility of people not having to be part of the central store isn't the same, especially when you're expecting 90+% of people to take advantage of that. So these are definitely things that they're going to have to be mindful of and actually still work on and figure out how they balance this, especially when they have funding going forward and they have to answer to their board and their investors.
1,000 people choosing to leave the platform in a day. Another study shows that X will continue to lose users, with an estimated 7 million users in the US expected to quit the platform between 2022 and 2025.
This is a platform that now seems to cater more pointedly toward right-leaning or conservative users. And so I think for folks who maybe don't want to be presented with that kind of content so in their face, Bluesky is an area that, for all intents and purposes, the mechanisms are the same, but the vibe is completely different.
Despite its rapid success, some experts question if Bluesky can continue growing at the pace that it's been. User growth is already slowing. One analysis showed that Bluesky's daily active users on its mobile app in the US grew only 12% in December, compared to 248% in November. Additionally, taking advantage of some of Bluesky's unique features takes at least some level of coding, which can be daunting to the average user. It remains to be seen if users even want this level of customization.
For the vast majority of users, they don't want to go in there and be tweaking this feature and that feature. They just want to get off and running, and frankly,
this is exactly why other companies have moderation and curation of their content, is because the average person doesn't want to have to go through a dozen or 24 steps in order to say, I don't want to pay attention to politics. It'd be much easier if the person just scrolled through and the system knew this individual seems to be avoiding politics, so let me just stop showing them politics. And this is a positive example of why somebody would want to have their feed curated. And so there are positives to some of the behaviors that Bluesky has highlighted that they actively are not doing. And so this is where that's certainly a hurdle for your user base, and that might be something that they change. And this is exactly how Twitter and other feeds work, which is you start off with the user in mind and you think of how can I adjust this so that they have a more enjoyable experience. And then the lines get blurred after a while. And this is how I've seen it with other similar companies in the past.
Be entertained, maybe educated about what's going on in the world.
How Bluesky will be monetized is another lingering question.
I'll tell you what we're not going to do for monetization. We're not going to build an algorithm that just shoves ads at you and locking users in. That's not our model. And so what we are going to do is give users better experiences, add new features, and then we're doing a subscription model as well as services in the developer ecosystem, because this isn't just for users. This is for people who want to come build.
Just 2 weeks later, Graeber expanded upon Bluesky's position on ads during an interview with TechCrunch.
Does that mean that advertisers can never be on Bluesky?
I don't think that's necessarily true, but I think that the ways that we would explore advertising if we did would be much more user intent driven.
For Bluesky,
See, this is where they're keeping themselves open because they're trying to test out the subscription model. But at the end of the day, especially if they have investment money, if the subscription model doesn't get them what they want, they're going to start pumping ads. They are acting as though this isn't what they're going to do, but it might not be what they're going to do this year or next year, but it's still always going to be on the table. Once you get investment money and other people have a sizable ownership in the company, it's not just your decision anymore. And if you keep getting funding, you're going to keep finding other people who want to have a say and want you to earn more and more money.
At some point, they're going to have to introduce advertising. I think that's going to be key to just keeping the lights on and being competitive against the likes of X, and probably more so against Threads, which has all of the weight of Meta behind it.
Experts say even if Bluesky did want to woo advertisers, the platform's decentralized architecture may make that tough.
If you look at X, they lost a lot of advertisers because of the change in content moderation policies. Now, if you kind of take that over to Bluesky, where there's no set content moderation policy and it's set individually by each server, that becomes dicey for advertisers, right? At the end of the day, you want a controlled brand experience for that ad or for that piece of sponsored content. And so there's a possibility to get a highly targeted and focused niche for your ads on Bluesky, but then there's also the flip side of not having that platform-wide control over each server that might make brands think twice with their advertising spend.
Bluesky has also struggled with an increase of impersonator accounts and scammers. In late November, the Bluesky team announced stricter rules around identity protection and impersonation. The company also said it had quadrupled the size of its moderation team to deal with the backlog of moderation reports. While the future of Bluesky is still up in the air, experts say decentralized platforms like it are likely to bring about further fragmentation within the social media market.
The differentiator for these platforms now isn't so much the features, but rather the atmosphere that they create within their apps.
What you might see with Bluesky is just kind of a reflection of society where people who want that control, who want that independence, ownership, those kind of people might go to Bluesky. People who just want some memes might be going to Threads, and people who want to get in some real heated debates might be going to X. People will choose to go where their values align, where their interest aligns, where their people are.
Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please hit like or subscribe. I will see you around.